Okay, normally I start these videos with like some wacky thing that I'm like singing a Halloween song or anything like that, but I want to do something a little different for this video. I want to start with a story. So yesterday I was watching the Owl House Season 3 premiere, as you do. And I was watching it with my friend Jackson because we decided to binge watch this third season together because I had gotten him roped into the first two seasons, and so he's like, oh, let's just see this all the way through till the very end. When one scene in particular popped up and just sort of got me thinking about a broader topic in general.
Glyphs are powered by the magic of the Isles, by the Titan itself. Closer I am to the Titan blood, the stronger the glyphs become.
So spoilers, by the way, but in this scene, Luce is in the human world, and it had been previously established that the human realm in the show does not have magical properties, so you can't do this innate magic from the world. But a relic of that system is in this tiny little vial in the show, and it being around it causes you to be able to do some minor magic. So Luce is able to track down where the source is, saying, oh, if I'm closer to the thing, the light will get bigger. And I say all of this to sort of give you clarification as to when this happened. My buddy Jackson looked at it and said, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's a lot of really good scenes in Owl House Season 3, but this scene really got me thinking about magic systems, and how we sort of have to define magic when we're talking about stories. So what I want to talk with you guys about in this video is, well, what is magic? How do we define magic? What makes good magic? What makes bad magic? And how can we use magic in story to make something really freaking special? Hey, how's it going? I'm Connor, and I love stories. If you like this type of stuff, you're going to love my channel, so please hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and your help would be an absolute ton to me. So thanks. So what is magic, right? It seems like such a freaking simple question, but when you look back and you step back, you realize that it's super freaking broad. Like, there's so many examples of different magic systems, different things that you could describe as magic systems in so many different forms of media. So you can't really tell what magic is right off the bat, even if you think it is. Of course, you got your standard witches and wizard stuff like Harry Potter, where you take a wand and you and boom, you can like set something on fire or do far worse things. But then you also have other things that are in stories that kind of fall into that similar vein, but don't have that same aesthetic. The Force in Star Wars, I would argue, is a magic system. It's a supernatural force that people can tap into in order to do things that are unexplainable and to surpass human limits that just do not fall under the laws of physics. In comics, magic can be described in a lot of different ways. You can maybe say that some superpowers are considered just simply magic. Other superheroes like Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch literally are doing things that are based on some form of magic. Even in individual forms of media, magic can take on so many different meanings. And so it's really hard to figure out a concrete definition for magic. But I'm going to try. To do that, we got to talk about some characteristics of magic. Now, the first question you got to ask is, does magic need to make sense? And I'm going to say no. I think you can make a magic system that makes complete sense and follows its own rules and lays out those rules very specifically to people. The Owl House is a great example. Hey, all of our magic, all the magic that you see in this show is drawn from this evolutionary tree in which we were born from the dust of a god, basically. And so naturally, magic comes from the environment. And so when you're not in that environment, it doesn't work. These are rules that Dana Terrace lays out in the show that just makes sense. On the other hand, you can have a magic system that just does not make sense or is not clearly defined in the medium as to why this type of stuff works. There's a really great video by CJ the X that I'll link in the description that talks about Coraline and how it uses its soft magic system to really draw you in and give you this feeling of hopelessness that the character herself, Coraline, is feeling in a lot of the situations in this movie. It's a really fantastic video, but basically the cliff notes of it is that because the magic is not completely explained, you create an environment that makes a lot more sense given the story and the message of it. So I'm going to say that magic is not necessarily something that is completely explainable. It can make logical sense, you can make rules for the magic, but naturally, when you're talking about something that is supernatural, it can't be natural. That sentence is wild, so please bear with me, but you get what I'm saying when I say that, right? We don't always need to know where magic comes from, and not all magic comes from the same place. In Dungeons and Dragons, you pick different magic using classes based on how you get your magic. If you play a warlock, you got your magic from an otherworldly patron. If you are a sorcerer, you got your magic from something deeply within yourself, something innate. Maybe DNA, maybe genetics, something like that gives you the ability to do magic. If you play a wizard, you get your magic from a lot of studying, a lot of development, and a lot of just hard work without being naturally attuned to it. Which, right now, I'm playing a wizard right now, and it's a ton of fun. And it really goes to show that you have to play these different magic classes in a different way that makes sense for the character. Now, that's something about writing effective magic. You can't just put magic in that doesn't make sense for the story that you're trying to tell. I'm gonna call Sky High a magic system. I'm gonna call Sky High a magic system, and that might blow some people's minds because you don't typically put superpowers and superheroes and stuff like that in the same realm as magic. But when you think about it, it really does. It really makes sense. So please bear with me. But Sky High is a magic system, and I'll use it for this argument here. The idea of Sky High begins with the main character being a runt of the family. Somebody that doesn't have magic. Somebody that is surrounded by all of these superpowered individuals and yet does not have said powers, or at least they haven't developed yet. The magic system is built on this idea that magic is hereditary, magic is based on DNA, magic is something that comes from themselves, comes from something that you can't control. It's not something that you can just learn, right? You can't just learn superpowers. The journey that our main character faces in this is not only the development of some form of a superpower, but also to be reconciling with the fact that, hey, I'm just okay with being me. I'm just okay with who I am. I do not need to be defined by superpowers. I don't need to be defined by my parents. I don't need to be defined by any of these things. I am defined by what I choose to be defined by. And the magic system that they create in the story makes sense for that character progression. However, if a story is trying to make the same argument, but make that magic system just inherently a part of that person and they're super freaking gifted with it, then it just falls flat. It doesn't work. I'm going to talk about Last Jedi because all white guys with beards on the internet talk about Last Jedi. But I'm going to talk about it from a perspective of how the magic system works against the character's struggle. We find out later that Rey is a descendant of Palpatine, and no matter how much you think that that's stupid or dumb or awesome or whatever, you have to admit that that makes more sense than when the original twist that she's nobody comes out. She's a scavenger, which means that she's had to work and be creative with stuff to survive. There are so many things that lead us to believe that Rey, as a character, is going to be this sort of paragon of like, oh, we got to work hard to get this done. But then the magic system makes her innately gifted to a level that we hadn't seen since Anakin Skywalker. So when you're writing these two things, they kind of conflict against each other. And then you say, oh, well, maybe the reason is because they have some lineage or something like that, where they're always talking about her parents, and that's why it makes sense why she still has all these, she's innately so gifted and so strong with the Force. And then Last Jedi says that she's nobody. And that doesn't make sense because of how the magic system and how the story has laid out the cards for you. Writing a magic system that makes not only logical sense, but emotional and storytelling sense is so critically important to creating a story that is going to impact people. I'd almost argue that the emotional weight of a magic system or how the magic system works is far more important than if the system itself logically makes sense. Of course, there's going to be huge loopholes in a lot of places that if you go unchecked are going to be held at with scrutiny, but end of the day, you can make the most logically sound, perfect magic system, but if it does not resonate and it does not make sense with the story that you want to tell, all of your work is lost. End of the day, magic's really freaking cool, and it's a fantastic storytelling device, a fantastic trope that you can use as a writer, as a storyteller, as anything in order to make stories that are meaningful, are fantastic, and will change people's lives. But end of the day, I'm Connor. I enjoy stories, and I will see you again next time. Take care.